Do you want us to jump into Season 5? Well, guess what? We already have, and you can jump in with us. It's already up over on our Patreon. And not just the uncut reactions that you have to sync up your own copy for, yes, those are there as well, but we are also posting the edited versions close to the same time the uncuts go up, which is far ahead of YouTube. So if you don't want to wait till January 1st to start Season 5 with us here on YouTube, go join us over on Patreon. You'll also be supporting us and helping us make all of our videos that we do here. And once we hit our Patreon goal, we'll be moving up to 3 episodes of our Star Trek journey a week on Patreon and here on YouTube. Not everyone can support on Patreon, and we get that, but if just 2% of you guys went and joined over there, we'd hit our goal today. There's a whole bunch of other benefits over there too. Get entered into our monthly movie lottery reaction, enjoy all of our exclusive content that's over on our Patreon, uncut and edited that doesn't even make it to YouTube, and get direct interaction with us so you can tell us how stupid we are to our face.
What the? Okay, recognize this chair. What the? Oh, wow. This must be the new set, Josh. This is great. Wait, hold on. Okay, yeah, we're good. We got everything.
This is our new set, however, it is brand new, so this isn't finalized. This is just the first version of what we have going on. It'll be in the works. We'll probably change it in the coming weeks and months as usual. But today we're here to talk about something that's not new to us, and that's Star Trek. Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 4 has just wrapped up. What a season it was.
It might be at this point, from what we've seen, the most solid, spectacular, greatest season of Star Trek. Maybe, I don't know. The other rival is what, season 1 of TOS? That's the biggest rival?
To me, that was my favorite still up to this point. And then even TNG season 3. I mean, I loved season 3, but even that, it would be hard to make an argument of it over season 1 of TOS. But this one, not only is there an argument, I think this one, they're neck and neck. And I could go back and forth as to where, for me, it comes down to what show are you in the mood to watch? Because I think TNG now has officially kind of set their own standard, their own vibe, and not only separated itself from TOS, but now I can feel like I know what TNG is. I mean, at this point, we've watched more of it than there is we haven't watched. We're more than halfway through the episode.
That's right. That's right.
It could drastically change, but assuming that the last 3 seasons stay in this kind of tone, I think I kind of get it. Which is funny because TOS, I felt like I got it after 1 episode.
Yeah.
And I basically did. I mean, we learned more as we went on, but, you know, that was so early on, so good. This one really took some time to get there. Do you think in a world where TOS wasn't the first thing we watched and we did start with TNG, do you think that we would have even made it this far?
Depending how well it did on YouTube. I don't know. The build-up of watching TOS, TAS, and the movies leading up to TNG, the excitement was, you know, like, oh my God, we're 1 episode closer to TNG, because that was because we just wanted to start with TNG. Like, oh yeah, you know, Next Generation, we'd start. That's like the greatest show ever. Let's start there. And I think you were like, we should probably start from the very beginning. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And but to tell you the truth, I don't know if it would have made a difference. I would have been excited either way. Probably less excited if we just started with TNG, and then just with how season 1 is, like, would I have those, not nostalgia goggles, but the excited goggles. I don't think it'd be as strong. Maybe during season 1, I definitely would have been like a little more, is this good? I don't know. It's up until, I'm trying to remember the Encounter at Farpoint, Naked Now. What was the first like good episode of season 1 of TNG?
Looking back, it feels like it took a while. Off the top of my head, I would say Heart of Glory, the Klingon episode in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So that was deep into the season. That's my favorite of that season. I think it was yours too, if I remember correctly.
Big Goodbye was my
Big Goodbye, okay.
I think that was episode 13. I'm trying to...
And that was like the first real holodeck episode, which was also something that set this show apart. But the reason I feel that season 4 in particular really set it apart is from more of a character perspective, and also we're finally seeing Star Trek become a little bit more of that continuous story, that serialized story, a universe, a world it's building out, rather than purely episodic. TOS and TNG, up until this point, a lot of it, it's an episodic show with the same crew. And you could jump into basically any episode with a few exceptions and understand as if it's the first episode. Because the first episode of TOS, there's no origin. It throws you in. TNG, there is that origin, but does it really matter? Like, especially if you already know Star Trek, like, it doesn't really matter. You could show someone Heart of Glory, and they're not going to have the connection to the Klingons or anything, but they'll understand, the big goodbye. They'll understand. So I think this is where I wouldn't show somebody Reunion or Redemption, or The Mind's Eye, like, without them understanding Klingons, Romulans, what's been going on. I feel like it'd be more confusing. We're starting to get to that point.
Yeah, there's a few episodes in season 4 that I definitely would just say as a one-off, like, oh, check this out, Remember Me, Clues. They definitely have those, but season 4 definitely rewards you for watching the show. And some people are like, oh, just start with season 3. I'm like, imagine the emotional, like, investment I've had because of season 1 and 2. I wouldn't have had that with 3 or 4, which is crazy that some people suggested that. But yeah, the show in general, it's like we watched this show grow up. Season 1 and 2 were definitely some growing pains. 3, I think massively better than the first 2, but still working out the kinks. And 4 I think is better than season 3, but still has some kinks to work out, because not every episode of season 4 was a bang. Not every episode of the season was an S, but as of right now, I think season 4 is. I don't know if it has my favorite episode of TNG of all time or favorite episode of Star Trek as a whole, but in general, it's probably my favorite so far.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree, because you said there's still some episodes that aren't great, but really, when I look at least our initial tier gradings, we'll do our end of the season tier grading and see if it changes, but neither of us gave out a single E this season, watching through, and I think there were only maybe 2 or 3 Ds total among the both of us. So, like, yeah, are there a couple episodes I can think of that I really do not care about? Yes, but even those, I didn't have a Captain's Holiday or a Up the Long Ladder, type of moment, a When the Bow Breaks moment. I didn't have like a time where I was miserable watching the show, and that's really,
We had sort of a Captain's Holiday moment.
a moment, yeah.
Yeah.
But even in that episode, Cupid, I assume you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Even in that episode, there's plenty of stuff in that one that we did laugh at and enjoy with the Robin Hood stuff. So it feels like we've gotten to that point where I'm never worried now going into Star Trek that I'm going to just, like, detest it. And we're tough. We're tougher than a lot of people. So to look at the grades we gave it on our first go-through, and for all of them to be so high and for so few of them to be bad, or not positive grades, I just find that very surprising, and it just goes to show for this season the quality we're working with.
Yeah, and putting together my list, I did it earlier today, because I kind of put it off because I knew how hard it would be, because we gave out 7 or 8 S's, so 7 or 8 tied for first place. We obviously can't do that, so I was just sitting earlier today and just like a few times just debating 2 episodes for like one place. I'm like, I don't know. Like, even looking at my list now, I'm like, well, that could go here now, or like kind of rewatching our video on it. And I'm like, oh shit, I did like this one a lot. Did I like it more than like, I don't know, because I'm trying to remember, like, oh, what moments in the episode did I not like that would lower it than the one I'm arguing with? And even then, I'm like, it's like this show is great. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, there are definitely things about the season that make it hard to rank. One is just how much we loved it, but also how different almost every single episode was from each other. There are a few that are thematically similar or continue from one another or connect, but even in those, like I look at just the end of the season here, you had the Mind's Eye, the Geordi episode where he gets kidnapped by the Romulans, and then the finale and Redemption. We have some connections there. We have some follow-ups with the Romulans and the Klingons, but really they're 2 completely different episodes, one focused mostly on Geordi and one focused on Worf. And like even those are a continuous story, but like you could watch either one of them and they're completely different. You can have different thoughts about each of them. So that's to me why it's so difficult, more so than past seasons. And I'm someone who loves ranking things and loves like, oh, why do I like this one more than this one, or vice versa. As to where some people might just be, oh, I just like watching the show, I don't care about that. But for someone like me, it's rare to say like, oh wow, of these top 10 or top 12 or whatever it is, like I love all of them so much that it's hard to even rank, and it could be any of them could be number one. Like that's something rare for me to say. That's not, I don't throw that out there all the time. So that's genuinely how I felt with this one, and that's going to be difficult. But before we jump right into that, this season, what were just kind of overall highlights or some of your favorite moments from it?
Favorite moments from this season? Just continuity in general, and just realizing, oh, it's even more continuous from the last season. Because I thought season 3 did pretty well with continuity with some things, but this season just upped the ante. I'm like, oh, they're changing the game here. They're going off the rails here. Especially with season 1, like having like episodes like The Naked Now, just like direct sequels or remakes of past TOS episodes. It's like, do your own thing, guys. But now I feel like we have a solid team. We got Ronald Moore, Jerry Taylor, a solid set of producers. Like some of them even direct episodes. They broke the curse of like the writers' wall of the 6 or 7 writers. Definitely some have been bangers with the amount of writers. They have their solid team of directors. But in terms of things that stick out, just going against the grain of the A and B story with episodes like Data's Day. Just like, you know what? This is Data's Day. That's it. Or Family. You know what? Here's grief. And that's it. Here's no stakes, no plot, no ship blowing up, people dying, just grief. And also just direct continuation. One, Best of Both Worlds Part 2, obviously, is a continuation. But then the next episode would be like a sequel to the sequel of that. It's just, whoa. And to do that in episode 2, it's like the season just started. It's like not establishing any new villains or anything, just like still riding the high of the finale of the last season. I'm like, credit. But other great moments, not Kayla dying.
I would say just a couple of things off of what you said. Best of Both Worlds, starting off the season with a continuation. And not only a continuation, but starting off the season with a direct pickup that exact moment from the to be continued. It wasn't a 3 months later, whatever. It's been 6 weeks since Picard was captured. No, it's like right there in that moment. What did you think about that as far as starting a season that way? And does it make you retroactively think about part 1 from season 3 any differently after seeing the conclusion?
We've mentioned this in the episode, but yeah, definitely, because my biggest pet peeve with cliffhangers or finales, or not finales, cliffhangers, is that the issue is not resolved, but whatever they left on the cliffhanger with Mr. Worf fire, and then like next episode didn't work. Next, that's what we waited for.
So does that make you feel lesser about the finale?
No, because I love everything with Riker in that episode. Because finally they gave Riker something to do that season. I think that season in particular was very. They pulled the reins back on Riker for a little bit, and everyone else got some more time to shine until they finally dove deeper into his character. Like, hey, you've been around, you've been a number 1 forever. It's time for your own ship. And seeing him finally struggle with something as opposed to just the entire time, which was wonderful. That's what I love about that episode. The stuff with the Borg and all that, and Locutus, that's all fine, but I love the inner turmoil with Riker. And did I answer your question?
I did, yeah, that did. And then the second piece, you talked about how they didn't introduce any villains right away in the season, but then we do get one of my highlights of the season in The Wounded, introducing the Cardassians. And I don't know if they'll be back in TNG, but I loved both that episode, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but also just how well this show has been able to introduce villains. Put the Ferengi aside. That was their strike one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But since then, I mean, you have the Borg, the Cardassians. They just bring them in, and instantly they're a threat. and it doesn't have to rely on the past like the Romulans and the Klingons do. Like those will always be a threat, like we're bought in. So like to be able to set up the Borg and now this season the Cardassians, I found very impressive, and it was the guy you just talked about yesterday, James, or no, it wasn't him.
No,
Who
not
was
James
it that played the
Cromwell.
Cardassian? It was someone that we knew from something. Anyway,
Gal Doucette, is that his name?
yeah, Gal Massett, the head Cardassian. All the Cardassians were great, but the head Cardassian, probably my favorite guest performance of the season. I'd have to think about it a little bit more as we go through the episodes, but he came in and as that, pretending to be the diplomat to Picard, pretending like everything's, on the up and up and he's not doing anything shitty, only to basically find out, it's not officially revealed, but to basically find out that, the captain of the other ship was correct and this guy is, doing something nefarious. Mm-hmm. I really loved that.
Yeah, Picard being like, tread lightly. And then the Cardassian tries to, oh, well, and then Picard just turns his back to him. Like, whew. Yeah, the show does a great job of having our previous villains from the movies and TOS there and having those storylines, but also establishing these new villains, establishing them like, oh, here's the Borg, and then they go away for a bit. Oh shit, they're back. And now with the Cardassians, a great interesting villain, establish them, and they're gonna take them away for a bit, and I'm already like this universe feels so like lived in and real. It's like, oh, at any point, like when are they gonna come back? When are the Borg gonna come? Because they're out there looming out there, and with every like episode, you never know, especially with how continuous it is now. Oh, they could be back. It's like every week it starts like I'm super. Well, obviously I'm super excited, but I'm like pumped. Like, what are they continuing this time? Because every episode's like, okay, what's the story this time? But now it's a double. It's like, what's the story, and is there going to be any continuation? That's makes every episode super exciting now.
Yeah, and I really just have to credit the way that they don't. It really seems that they just weren't content this season to be like, all right, we got Picard, pretty established. We have Worf, his stories are going on, Data. Like, let's just build these guys. They did that, but to have the bravery to be like, okay, these guys are solid. They're gonna have their episodes. Let's give Geordi some more episodes. Let's build out Chief O'Brien. Let's build out these other characters that haven't gotten as much focus so far in the show. And then to do it really well. Like, I can't really think of any episode that they focus on a more side character that I thought wasn't done well. I guess for me, the only one that didn't hit it out of the park was the Barkley one. But that wasn't bad. Like, they did the Barkley stuff well. That's more about the episode itself that we'll talk about. But in terms of focusing on the side characters like that, it's such a contrast to what we've seen before, especially in TOS, but even in TNG of, setting up these main characters. I felt like this was the first time that they really made an effort to make sure everyone, Troy got episodes, Riker got episodes, Beverly for sure got episodes. Everyone did. Wesley did, and then he left.
He got his own episode, and he got out of here, and the rest of the season was just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the balls, and just the amount of times this season so far has made me like, shut up. It's like, okay, they introduced that Chief O'Brien has a wife. We're never going to see her again. The very next episode, they're working out having dinner. Like Chief O'Brien wants to have his stuff from Ireland, but they're usually having like Keiko stuff. I'm like, this is great. This is, it's like, and then like the whistle, or like not the whistle, but the plot, like it opens like with them, and then they get the call. Oh, people to your stations. Like, that's great. Usually it's anyone else doing something. Oh, problems here, but to have it with them, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the way that they will both continue stuff right away, but then also have the confidence that they don't have to with things like Tony Todd Kern, rest in peace, recently passed away, Tony Todd. Worf's brother, he does eventually come back this season, but at first we don't see him, and then in reunion, just a mention of him, just like me and my brother, like just throwing it out there. Or Worf's parents coming in and family, they never show up again this season, but just the mention of them, like, oh, I'm sending Dorf to my parents.
Yeah,
Alexander, but
yeah, they even mentioned Dorf Alexander a couple times in the finale. Just a little like reminder, like, yes, we didn't forget that Worf has a son. Don't worry.
and to trust you that like we're gonna introduce this character, and they'll come back one day, maybe like Kern did eventually, but like they can trust that they can just like name drop it and you're aware, or even if you're not aware, even if it's the first episode you watched, like it's not this huge confusing thing. Like they trust that like the universe is lived in enough that you trust the show to just name these off-screen characters. Because imagine if in TOS, if they're having a conversation and then I'm trying to think of lower, like Sulu was just like, oh yes, my parents when I did this. Like I instantly would have been like, whoa, Sulu's parents? Like we've never heard anything about them. What's that about? So the fact that they're able to build out not just their big three or big four, but then the secondary crew, and then like relatives and other outside characters is just like, I think it's really excellent. And I wanted to ask you this question off of that. I think the strongest piece of TOS, the writing is great, but the performances in that show, I think like make the show, the William Shatner, the Leonard Nimoy, amazing performances here in TNG, but honestly, I think the writing is really the core of this show. Like, so many fire pen moments again this season, and like of course Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner and everybody, they're hitting it out of the park with it. But like what sticks with me are these lines, the dialogue, the writing of these episodes. I'm like, oh my god, that happens sometimes in TOS, but a lot of times not as much. It was more so like I remember those performances. You know, what do you think about that?
I agree. Kirk every now and then would have some very great fire pen moments, but mainly just him, maybe Spock or Bones every now and then, but almost everyone in TNG, from Guinan to Chief O'Brien to Data, like everyone gets a fire pen moment. And the amount of times where you can watch our reactions, the amount of times we just went shit, or the amount of times we do the meme, that means fire pen. Just the writing is definitely the strong point, especially when it's not a very action-oriented show. TOS, there was like a very good classic 60s style fight scene all the time. That doesn't happen all the time in TNG, especially with a captain like Picard. He's throwing maybe what, 2 or 3 punches, and they mean something.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Except for the one in Captain's Holiday, but
yeah, it meant something.
Yeah.
Didn't mean anything.
It was the worst episode.
Didn't mean anything good. But I'm more interested in seeing just Picard in a chair in court, similar to the Drumhead, and then just like how we used to argue with people on Facebook back in the day. And when you own someone,
Yeah.
you're just like, and the amount of times he's done that in this show and this season, it's just like, it feels so good.
Yeah, or even like the scene in that same episode, but where it's Picard and Worf in the conference room, going back and forth about what to do. And yeah, Michael Dorn and Patrick Stewart are doing amazing there, of course, but the writing is like so strong that I think sometimes like, am I giving the actor too much credit? Like to where it's like they're doing their job, but like, damn, imagine if the writing wasn't good. Like look back to earlier TNG, with some of that stuff. Like they couldn't always save it. There were episodes where they would still save it, like they would still make it good. But a lot of the time, you were waiting for the Ronald Moore or the Jerry Taylor or the no longer on the show, but for a while, Melinda Snodgrass, come along and write these scripts. And I think David Livingston and Michael Piller are other ones. Ira, Stephen Bear, like there's a group of them. But with that being said, you mentioned it a little bit about not everything being perfect. Were there things about, not necessarily per episode, but like season as a whole that were maybe like letdowns or things you wished you would have seen, or anything that you felt like the season was a little bit short on?
Right off the bat, no. I mean, no. Guest character. I mean, they let me down with killing Kalar, of course, and just, I guess, keeping those stakes alive. You asked me if there's anything that I have problems with, and I start praising it. I think it figured out, like, okay, Tasha Yar dying. Well, they haven't even spoken about her yet. Tasha Yar dying, like legit dying, big shock, but it was because of stuff, backstage. This isn't like The Walking Dead where they just drop, or Game of Thrones where they would just drop people out of nowhere. But back in the day, they realized, okay, we can't have stakes with the ship blowing up or a crew member dying every week. how do we create tension that's legitimate? Recurring guest stars or guest stars. We can have tension there because we don't know if that person's going to die. And sometimes they did with Kalar. And sometimes you think they're going to die, whether it's Barkley or Leah Brahms, or I don't know if Leah Brahms was in danger. But it's always there. Like, oh, you never know. You never know. I seriously doubt that Majel Barrett, Laxwana was ever in any life-threatening situations. No, unless you list some examples, there's nothing this season. I guess just having mid-episodes is kind of a sin. It's like, come on, guys. You guys have been doing great. I get it. You probably have 15 solid-ass ideas, but you got to fill that 26-episode contract.
Yep.
So it's like, what do we do for the other ones? Oh, let's give. You want to write? I don't know.
And
there's no way they go into it like, I have 26 great ideas.
Yeah, and it's also being made as they're on TV. You know, it's not modern TV. Let's take 3 years to make the 8 episodes and then they air eventually.
Right.
A year after we're done making it. You know, they're making these and they're airing a few weeks later and they're got to make more. You know, they're filming it for over months. And I kind of miss that on TV, but I also understand how difficult that would be, and it leads to, you know, sometimes mid-tier episodes or worse. I think the thing with characters, though, whether it's main characters or guest ones, you know, they've really figured out how to create tension and create drama and stakes, and it doesn't always have to be death. Like, it doesn't always have to be like, is this person going to die? Like, when they were bringing on Leah Brahms, and that was announced in the beginning of the episode, Picard tells Geordi, we were immediately, you know, we're not thinking, is Geordi going to die or is Leah Brahms going to die? We're immediately thinking, oh no, did Geordi delete that holodeck program? Like, what if she finds out?
Yes.
Like, there are things now that are set up in the show where it doesn't have to be the Enterprise blowing up, and that's good. You know, it can be, you know, Broccoli comes back. Oh my God, is he still going to be awkward? Is he still going to be embarrassing himself? You know, and it's like things that, you know, you don't tune in to see their lives at stake every week, and that's okay. And we've harped on that a lot, you know, going back these first 4 seasons of joking about that, and sometimes we've mistakenly, I think, sometimes just called that the plot. But it's not just the plot, it's unnecessary stakes when there don't need to be. Mm-hmm. And I think the show and this season finally broke through that uncomfortableness of, oh, we don't need to do that. Like, there still is all the time. There still is those stakes all the time, but it doesn't always need to be that. Mm-hmm. Or it could just be one person in danger, like with Barkley, you know, hooking himself up to the computer when he got really smart and, oh, I can't come out because then I'll die. So his life is kind of at stake, but it's his own. He did it to himself, you know. So I've just, the creativeness of it, of making me care more than just about, are they going to survive? Because TOS was like, are these dudes going to survive? Even though we knew they would. Like, we knew no one was dying on that show, really. Like, every week, I was like, bro, are these guys surviving?
TOS was good with it because it was always in the last 2 minutes they'd figure it out. It's like, what are they going to do? And then they figure it out, then it's like, oh, it's over.
And the answer was rarely ever obvious. Like, we didn't predict it halfway through, and you know, most of the time we're like, what are they going to do? They're all going to die. And then they solve it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like, oh, it's over.
Yeah, as to where here, it's like there were times, especially in the earlier seasons, where you're like, oh, okay, well, they're going to do this. And then you're just like, you know, waiting for them to get there. And so the answer isn't, like, yeah, you can do the TOS method, but I feel like the answer is make the lower stakes work. And they've done that so well.
Yes, and with them being so good with continuity, there's other forms of stakes. Like, will Worf get his honor back? Like you mentioned earlier, the Brahms and Geordi interaction. Like, oh, that's going to be awkward. 3 Brent Spiners. You know, it's like, what's it? Data, Noonien Soon, and fucking Data. You know, what's that going to be like? What else? Tasha Yar's sister. That was this season. Remember that?
Yeah, Tasha Yar's. And that kind of brings up another point, too, with it is, even with how many amazing episodes there were, when you get to that second tier of episodes that aren't like that top tier, and you have things like the Tasha Yar sister episode, the one where Picard has the kid on board, you know,
Almost Human, or Suddenly Human.
Yeah, Suddenly Human. Those kind of mid-tier episodes where, no, I'm not jumping to go back and watch those right away. They're still like low-key pretty good. Like, they're still like, this is pretty good. I would watch this no problem. I don't hate it. And that's what really impressed me about this season was whole bunch of amazing episodes supported by just like good ones, to where it almost became disappointing when they were just good. Like, and like we were really harsh, and like looking back on it, it's like, man, you know, I really, really enjoyed Data's Day, but I spent the whole time being disappointed that I didn't love it. And I feel like maybe that's something that just comes with like, adapting to the show or whatever, is like realizing they're not all going to be amazing. So like, just accept it when it's good rather than be like, oh man, this could have been my favorite thing ever, but it wasn't.
I mean, that's the thing with so many great episodes. To differentiate it, you have to complain about the stuff you don't like. Otherwise, they're just all amazing except for a couple oddballs. It's like, okay, how do I separate this? Especially when I'm doing the lists, I'm like, all the 8 of these are fantastic. Yep. Which one do I like more?
Yeah, what can I nitpick?
Yeah. Exactly.
And also, it makes the episodes we love and have no complaints about, even though they're far and few between, that much more special. If we were sitting here praising every single episode except the 5% that are like obviously not great, then does it really matter how much more we like, Family or Remember Me or The Drumhead like versus each other? No, who cares? We just like it, So I think that it's a balance, like anything. But just from my personal experience, I'm trying to get more into the mood of like, I think about when we watch Data's Day versus the one towards the end of the season, In Theory, with Data, where he's dating the girl. I allowed myself to enjoy In Theory a lot more, even though I knew it wasn't like my favorite episode of the season. As for watching Data's Day, I like literally was making myself disappointed of like, why don't I love this more? Why isn't this just a little bit better? And I think you actually like that one more than me.
I think I like it more.
Yeah. But I would say, okay, I do have one, I would say, disappointment or miss or a problem with the season. And it manifested itself to kind of similar situations. Wesley leaving and Worf leaving at the end of the season, both in my opinion, emotionally did not resonate at all with me.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is because the show is trying to do this thing where it's becoming serialized and less episodic, but it is still episodic TV, and sometimes they just rush things too much. Now, the Wesley situation with Will Wheaton, I don't know what happened. No one really told us much detail besides just he left the show. But, so I don't know the situation if it was like Tasha where they just had to make an episode. But assuming that that's the case, it was just so quick. That he just became an official part of the crew at the end of the last season.
Right, yeah.
And now he's leaving. And it's like one episode focused on him that's not that great, and then, oh yeah, I'm leaving. And the plot didn't really have much to do with him leaving. And then Worf, we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, on our list, maybe. But, a whole episode was going on. Oh, now you have to get back in the Klingons. Now you have to leave the Enterprise. And it just, all happened. And it was like, whoa, 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 guys. It's not hitting me because you're being too episodic, It's like you're falling into that trap. So that, I guess that's the one miss for me. Or even you couldn't even include Kalar in there. It's like, we just found out she had a kid, and it's Worf's, and this is going on with the, who was the big guy that died? The big Klingon?
Oh, the president or whatever.
Yeah,
the same guy.
Kempek.
Good call on that.
Yeah, Kempek dies, all this stuff happens, and then Kalar dies, then Worf kills the guy. I'm like, dude, you don't have to do it all in this episode. It makes it not hit as hard.
Yeah, take out Cupid and put in a middle Klingon episode between Worf leaving. Put Kalar dying if you are going to fucking make that decision. Put it in that middle episode. Don't do it in the same episode that you introduce that she has a son now. Do it in the middle. Take your time. Because a lot of this season, I'm glad you brought this up, was one, a lack of Worf, and two, when they did do Worf episodes, they shoved 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag. I just need to separate it into one more episode. Because I will agree, that was my biggest disappointment, was Worf is arguably my favorite character, and just I've always gotten emotional during his episodes, but during his episodes this season, with the exception of Kalar, dying, and that was more of an angry episode.
Yeah, you were angry, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be more upset or be more happy that, one, he got his honor back, and be more upset that he left. But it all fell kind of flat to me. It's like, I should be more invested in this, but I'm not. Why? Why am I not feeling this? I should be devastated right now. Or I should be over the moon that he got his honor back. I don't know if it was just bad execution or just like, gotta go. We get so much shit. I don't know how they did it in Sins of the Father with how much they had in that episode and they have it work so well, but with the way they did it in Redemption, it just didn't hit.
And I even complained about it more than you in Sins of the Father, where I even said, you just introduced Worf's brother. Let it be the Worf's brother episode. But the episode was just so freaking awesome that I can't like be that mad. So I was even starting to feel it then, where it's like you're rushing this, where like you just introduced his brother, now he has to go to defend his dad, and now he's kicked out of the Klingons, and they did it again. And I don't know why. It really seems like it's just Worf now that I'm thinking about it. That they're like, all right, well, we're doing a Worf episode now, so let's shove a whole season's worth of character development into this. As to where every other character, granted, they don't get as much development. Worf has developed more than any other character on the show, except maybe debatably Data. But, like, you know, everyone else, it's like, oh, Data just has a girlfriend this episode, or meets his dad, or Troy loses her powers temporarily, you know, Beverly gets a boyfriend who's an alien. Like, it's like, then Worf, it's like, his girlfriend dies and he has a son. It's like, whoa, chill out.
And he's leaving. What? What do you mean he's leaving?
Can we once again just please give credit? Wasn't spoiled in the titles, wasn't spoiled in the credits at the beginning of the episode, and wasn't spoiled in the subtitles that it was Denise Crosby or that it was Tasha. Like, congratulations, you did it. You did it.
It's like if they realize, wait a minute, we don't have to credit her. Like, we can have this as a surprise.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't watch the episode teaser, but it'd be hilarious if we did. And a special return, and just shows Tasha Yar.
Yeah, we stopped watching the episode teasers because I just felt like they had kind of run their course with, like, we would say the same thing every time. Like, it's funny every time when they spoil it or whatever. I don't know if you had watched any of them in the YouTube edits, but they have gotten better.
I watched one. I think it was the Cardassian O'Brien episode, and they had...
Don LaFontaine.
Don LaFontaine, yeah.
It's usually him now.
Yeah.
And the music is different now too. It's like a dun, 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 like a dramatic music. So they've gotten better. It's just an update to what we think about the teasers. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, it's kind of like. On the other hand, though, it makes me feel like I don't have any kids, but the classic like. Oh, you can't, or even like your job at work, like, oh, you can't do too well because then they'll expect you to do that every time. It's like that's the expectation I have on the show. It's like, oh, so you knew you shouldn't have spoiled her, so why do you do it all the other times? It's like, oh, I don't want to hear the excuses the other times because they proved they could do it if they care.
I have a theory they didn't know they could until that. It's like, wait a minute. Oh, we cannot spoil this. I have a feeling they were contractually obligated to earlier, or thought they were, and then they realized they weren't. It's like, wait. We don't have to spoil this? Oh, we can do this all the time? So hopefully that's a recurring thing from now on, where they realize we don't have to put their name in bright blue. Researching episodes for notes on IMDb, and just I would scroll to cover up the screen to not see the one below, the one I'm looking for. It's like, and you'd see for a second, scroll really fast just for the episode. Cupid. Oh, well.
Yeah.
I wonder who's in this one.
Yeah.
It's like John Delancey. Oh, really? You don't say. It's like...
Yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to look at them, but I'm not going to care. I'm not going to care as much anymore. We did all that work for Q, and Q has let us down the last 2 seasons. Not John Delancey, but the Q episode this season was debatably my least favorite. Not his fault.
Not his fault.
But that's what they put him in. And then last season, I didn't care for the Q episode as much as a lot of people did.
I'm still going to refrain from episode titles, just in case.
Yeah. I'm not going to go out of my way, like I said.
Because you never know. Like Sarek, for example. Remember that?
And you got spoiled anyway. This is the second time. No matter what, you're going to get spoiled.
I can't escape spoilers. It drives me nuts.
That's great. And it's always you, too.
I'm just glad, because the TNG box set is set from, season 1 to 4 and 5. So now I can have that first thing, and I can look at that and not get spoiled.
Yeah, true.
So thank God. I can put in any disc from season 1 to 4 because it's in that same box, and I'll be okay.